Hello everyone. Now this is the first time I've posted anything on this channel in, oh my goodness me, 7 years. But I want to talk about books, about reading, and about how there is still one system of communication between two distant human beings that artificial intelligence cannot and never will be able to tamper with, to alter, to modify, to improve possibly, to denigrate and destroy. And that method of communication is quite simply ink on paper, printing. Now wait, I am not saying all AI is intrinsically evil. That would be a very ignorant statement. As is claiming that it is in effect a godlike omnipotence and we should all be worshipping at the gates of our nearest data center as we beg for some water and electricity because they're using all of it. But behind the noise, bluster and grifting going on with AI, there is a shift taking place. There is actual a lot of research into this. People are not only buying, but they are reading more books. It's completely counterintuitive. We're flooded with screens, and yet people want paper books. For the last year, I found myself putting down my phone and picking up a physical book far more often than I would have done a few years ago. I don't think I was influenced by reading something about it. It just kind of happened. I got a bit sick of screens. There is something different about the experience of reading. And I mean different from watching, say, exactly the same story on a screen or in a movie or on a TV show or something. It tickles a different part of your brain. Yes, I know some people love an e-reader. It makes sense, especially if you're traveling. But those can be altered by very clever artificial intelligence. The story, the text, it's online, it's digital, it can be changed. There's lots of brilliantly good things about that and not so good things. And audiobooks, I've read countless audiobooks, a lot for the BBC. Young adult fiction, wasn't allowed to read any of the grown-up stuff, did lots of silly voices. Brilliant, great fun to do, great fun to listen to. Having someone else read the book to you, I love that. You can listen to a book as you do something else. I'm all for audiobooks. They can now be completely created by AI, which means they can also be changed subtly by AI. The message they're giving can have a different slant to it, depending on the particular scummy individual who owns that AI company. Are they all really horrible? I think they probably are. But anyway, I will still argue that reading a book printed on paper is the best way of experiencing a story. And I love writing stories. I used to get my books published by this amazing company called Unbound. I've been published by lots of different publishers over the last 40 years, but Unbound has been the most, real good fun to work with them. Unbound's a bit like Kickstarter for books. I'd successfully launched 5 different books of them over the last, 10 or 15 years. And the Ghost Camera was the most recent. Hang on a moment. I happen to have a copy right here. That is a copy of the Ghost Camera. And now, loads of people had pledged money for a copy of the Ghost Camera. The book was finished, it was edited, we were working on cover designs when I heard, out of the blue from where I was sitting, Unbound had gone. It was kaput. It was no more. It was completely bankrupt. It had gone into receivership. There was no money for anyone. Some Unbound authors had sold thousands of books and they didn't receive a penny. I'd raised more than enough money to print the first edition of the Ghost Camera. I didn't receive a penny. And all the people who had generously funded the project didn't get the book and they didn't get their money back. It was shocking and annoying and incredibly depressing. Now, I knew a lot of people who worked at Unbound and they all lost their jobs. It definitely isn't their fault. But one of them managed to extract a list of people who had supported the Ghost Camera. He assured me this wasn't definitive, but it was as much as he could get, and it was a great help. So I got a cover design done by a lovely man called Paul Wood, who does all the thumbnails for our YouTube channel, and I paid to have the Ghost Camera printed. I ordered 200 copies, and I sent out about 145 of them all around the world. I'm not asking for any sympathy. But, you know, I wasn't sort of worried about the cost of printing the books. But when I posted them, especially to the United States, it's really expensive. Anyway, I won't go on about it. The list of supporters I had was not complete. So for the next 4 or 5 months, basically most of this year, I'd get emails and messages from people who had pledged for the book on Unbound and had never received a copy or any explanation. So I've now sent just over 230 copies to people all over the world. And I sent the last 2 yesterday. So I'm finally up to date with my Unbound fulfillment. I say that now because I can't believe there's going to be any more. But I still get emails from people, probably will get some, who go, oh yeah, I supported the book on Unbound, I've forgotten all about it, here's my... And so I asked people to send a screenshot of their order and all that stuff. Anyway, I had some copies left over, so I set up this little online bookshop. Well, my mate Addy Cardy set up the bookshop because I wouldn't have been able to do it. And once it was ready, it seemed a little bit odd to have a bookshop that only sold one book. So I went through my back catalogue, I updated, redesigned and reprinted the 3 most successful books I've ever published, and hey ho, I started selling books. Now, that was all well and good, but that did mean that I then had to clear our kitchen table, cover it in books and envelopes and sticky tape and printed labels and stick them all. But one of the nice things is our post lady, who's lovely, who delivers post to us here, she can collect the books from our door, which is really good. So we don't have to traipse away and get them. She just takes them away for us. Anyway, that's not interesting. This is what's interesting, the books that are on offer. So the Ghost Camera, that book is set in the present day. It's kind of science fiction. It's about an incredibly ambitious scientific experiment that costs billions of pounds, and it's sprung out of Oxford University and it's set in Oxford. The story is told by a gentleman of roughly my age who is approaching retirement. He is a laboratory janitor. Don't call him a cleaner. He gets very upset if you call him a cleaner. He's a janitor. He runs the entire sort of backup for the laboratory. He knows how to operate the laboratory, how to keep it clean, how to make sure that everyone's got the stuff they need and they need it where it is. He keeps everything tidy with a load of absolutely mad, physics nerds that are making a mess everywhere. And he has to keep all the loos clean, everything. It's kind of really the job I should have done. Anyway, they spent all this money on this amazing machine and it doesn't work. It's a complete failure. It's a total disaster. It's economic meltdown until it does something that no one expected. And that is the rest of the story. I won't tell you any more now. 2 proper physicists and some really clever engineers have read this book, and it was so reassuring because they really raved about it. They really enjoyed it. So it does capture. I'll explain part of the reason I was interested in writing it is because I have seen loads and loads of amazing, weird startup companies that spring out of universities in the UK, and they start making weird batteries or electric motors in one particular instance, weird software, new kinds of wind turbines, new kinds of solar panels, lots of really interesting stuff. And often they start in a little shed somewhere outside Oxford and they end up either bankrupt or in amazing factories because they've been bought by Mercedes for millions of pounds. So that's that book. The next one, pretty obvious what that one is, The Man in the Rubber Mask. That gives the definitive background history of, I think it's 34 years making Red Dwarf. So on the back cover is a picture of my mates from Red Dwarf. Chris Barry, Craig Charles, Danny John Jules. We are like a sort of little weird brotherhood that have survived the stresses, the joys, the disasters, and the ecstasy of appearing in, well, I think, fair to say, a fairly iconic and amazing long-running comedy series set 3 million years, 3 million light years from Earth in a spaceship going the wrong way, and no one knows how to turn it round. That's fun. That's fun and light, with some rude words in it. The next one, and also that was published in 1992 originally, that book. I mean, I've updated it since then, but it was originally published in 1992. So it is quite an old story. And I mean, initially the book told the story of like being an absolutely proper penniless actor, down on my luck, getting a job on Red Dwarf. 4 years later, I was in Hollywood making an American pilot of Red Dwarf, which I have to say, thankfully, never became a reality. The next book was published in Oh, 1998. Yes, I've remembered. So that is The Man on Platform 5. And that is a romantic comedy. And as you might be able to guess from the cover, it's the story that's simply the story of My Fair Lady, or Pygmalion, which was published many years ago, and is the story that the original story is two gentlemen have a wager that they can't transform a grubby street urchin, working class, uneducated woman into a lady. That's what this one. And this one is two very sassy, very clever, very smart, successful women believe they can't. One of them says, "You'll never turn this nerdy, train-spotting sci-fi fan, computer nerd into a sexually attractive gentleman." And so the other one says, "Yes, I can." And so that it follows the story of what happens there. And out of all the books I've written, that's got my favourite ending. That book has got a story that takes you on a weird journey through life, and at the end, it's got an ending. Endings are really important. This is the most recent of my older books. This is News from Gardenia. It was published originally by Unbound. And that is a kind of vision of a utopian future set 200 years time. Slightly less than 200 years time now, because I wrote it in 2011. And it's not perfect, it's not faultless, but it is better than our lives today. And I wanted to write it in a way to counteract the torrent of negative dystopian movies and books and stories. And it's always, if there's no alien invasion, there's no zombies, there's no violence, there's no guns. They don't work anymore in 200 years' time. Anyway, so those are the 4 books that are currently online on offer at Robert's Modern Bookshop. It's a very modest venture, but I've had wonderful feedback from people for all the books. It's been amazing, but especially the Ghost Camera, which is really reassuring because that's the most recent. And I have yet one more book in the works, that hopefully I'll get out this year, which a lot of people have already read. It's called Time and Money. And late last year, I started releasing the book as a chapter a week, like they used to do in the olden days, a chapter a week on Substack. So digital, yes, it can be adapted and changed, but it's not been applied to paper yet. It's about 220 people subscribe to that Substack feed, and it got me through the first draft of writing it. I'm now in the latter stages of a huge rewrite because, once I look back at it, I went, oh yeah, there's a lot of things it says I don't like, so I'm changing quite a lot of it. And so it's again set in the present day, but it's about a very, very exclusive bank that the likes of you and I would never have heard of, never be allowed to go in, never even know existed. And this bank has some very special fiscal and economic tools and leverage at its disposal, and it can do some weird things. Its little strapline on its headed notepaper is, "You cannot go back in time, but your money can." That'll be available for Christmas this year on Robert's Modern Bookshop. Now, that's all I wanted to say. Now, links to my Modern Bookshop are in the show notes. No pressure. You don't have to do anything. Go and have a look. But you never know. You might actually, you might be sitting down one day in the sunshine, because there's plenty of that around, and you might enjoy reading one of them on paper. I want to say this: the revolution will be recorded with ink on paper, because no one will believe the digital version.